you're going to need your bulletin. You're going to need to open it up all the way like this, because I'm going to give you some blanks to fill in. If you are new to CrossWalk today, you came on a good day. First of all, because there's good food, and if I stink, at least you had a good meal. So that's something to think about. And then secondly, because I'm going to give you a brief overview of who we are and kind of remind you of what we're all about here, and that has to do with this. But then I'm also asking you today, and I might as well show you now so you can be thinking about it, on the back of the clue-in, which is what you're seeing here on the far side, I've got some stuff I want you to think about. So my overall question for you today as crosswalkers is, how shiny can CrossWalk become? We're in the end of the light series here. I've been doing several weeks on the light. You are the light of the world, out of Jesus' teaching. And so that's what the shiny thing comes. How bright can we shine? How many people can we serve, and how deep can we grow? Now here's where you come in. So you get to shape the future. You have a unique set of strengths and skills that can make a difference in the world, make a world of difference. Will you offer yourself to be used by God? So here's what I'm looking for. Two areas I want you to answer, and then a couple questions you just respond to. First, on your skill set teams, I want you to pick one. Not two, but I want you to pick one. Which of these teams do you think best fits your skill set? The dream team, let me tell you what that team's all about. The dream team is, we throw out an idea. And we say to you, hey, I think we could do, and this is actually one of the ideas we're going to throw at you, I think we can reach a whole lot more people if we do some ultra cool events that are way fun. Events like our Journey concert that we had, last January, whenever. Very, very fun. A lot of people came to it, a great time, and actually did some good. So we introduced some people to our work in Africa, which was totally cool. Well, if you're a dream team, you're like, oh, I have 10 ideas right now that I think would be so awesome. Or maybe you're like, okay, well, we want to rethink some things in our children's ministry. And we need some dream team people that are great at just dreaming big, outside the box kind of people. You know who you are, because you generally drive a lot of other people crazy with your ideas, okay? So that's what I'm talking about, dream teams. I want those kinds of things on the table together. And the Make It Happen team is not the dream team usually. The Make It Happen team is, all right, you've heard from the dream team. They've kind of cleaned up the dream a little bit, and now they've given it to you, because they know you can make it happen. By the way, this is largely how Dar and I work around here. Now, both of us have our dream moments, but generally, I'll come up with a goofy, crazy idea, and she'll make it work. That's usually how it works. So she is a make it happen kind of person, which is good. So if you're a make it happen person, I want you to check that box. The Warm Fuzzy team, you know who is the captain of the Warm Fuzzy team at CrossWalk? She doesn't even know it. It's Carrie Nuccio. How many of you already knew that, right? Carrie, raise your hand so we can just thank God for your warm fuzziness. Here's why. If you don't know Carrie and she comes across your path, you're going to know Carrie. And you're going to feel all warm and fuzzy 2 seconds after Carrie has been in your presence. That's what I'm talking about. If you have a natural skill set to put people at ease, to make people feel comfortable, we're looking for you, because you are really, really important in the life of our church. So if you're on the Warm Fuzzy team, I want to know about that. The Deliciousness team, if you're awesome at cooking stuff, you make everything taste a little better, then I want you on the Deliciousness team, because that is I'm sure that's a spiritual gift somewhere in the Bible, and we need that to be one here. So that's it. And then, this is the last team, except for that you picked my team for me. If you have no idea, then we kind of know you pretty well, and so we can pick a team for you if you're that indecisive. But this last one here above that is the Love Me Some Data. You know what the Love Me Some Data team? These are bean counter kinds of people. People who really look forward to working on databases and stuff. All right, there's only like two out of 100, and they're usually ostracized, so you know who you are. And we need you. So if you are a Love Me Some Data kind of team person, I love you, because I hate that stuff with a passion. And I need you, and so does the church. So that's the skill set teams. And then the passion zones, those kind of speak for themselves, but those, put 3 or 4 down that are really things that you're very excited about, very interested in. And what we're going to do in 2 weeks is we're going to bring you back together after the second service, somewhere around 11:30ish or so, in 2 weeks. And we'll do some kind of lunch thing. That's my idea, so Dar will make it happen. so anyway, we'll have some kind of lunch. We're going to gather you by your skill sets and by your passion zones, and we're going to let you have at it. See, I made a mistake a year ago. The mistake was I had too many. I know it's just one mistake I made last year, but I did make one. And that is that, I'll get to that, Jason, just so you can feel good about yourself. But last year I stood before you and I had all kinds of great ideas because I'm kind of a dream thinker, right? I like to push the envelope, you know that, think outside the box and stuff. So I had lots of great ideas that I was pretty sure we could pull off, but I could only pull off like 2 of them. And part of it was because I'm one guy and I can't do that much. And part of it was that some of the ideas weren't that great. And so, you know, people didn't like them. So they didn't show up. So I learned real quick, I can't do it. I know what I can do well, and it's not everything. And so I'm asking you, especially after you hear the teaching today, I'm asking you to own this place. This is your church. CrossWalk is you. It's us. It's we. So it's time for you to dream a little bit, to use your skill set, to use what you got. Because I am so proud of how incredibly much this place does because of you. But my mind is blowing by how much I think we can do. And the only way that can happen is if we use all your skill sets, tie it into your passions, and make it happen. And I think it's going to be a kick in the pants. So help me out with that. All the time while I'm teaching, you can just be thinking about what you're going to do there. And on the very end, this just helps us know how to even use you more specifically. So I want to know what your background or occupation is, because some of you might have skill sets we don't even know about, and you can really help us out in that way. Or any special skills or abilities. We need more cowbell in the band always, so if you know how to play the cowbell, that would be great. Okay, now to make Jason make us both feel good, really. Jason thinks it makes him feel good, but it really makes me feel better. So somebody came up to him before service started while people were getting breakfast, and they said, "Dude, I didn't know you got a tattoo. When did you get that?" And then he turns around and says, "Oh, I thought you were Pete." Now see, he's taking that somehow as a compliment, but I'm thinking, dude, that means I just lost 10 years because you look way younger than I do. So anyway, sorry about that. He tried to make it sound good for me, like now I'm a rock star or something like that, which could be. Okay, so CrossWalk shines brightest when I'm going to help you fill in these blanks. You can start guessing some of these now because this is our belief statement that I'm unpacking with you. It's all based on the Gospel of John. We're going to give you all those in a minute. But first I want to tell you how awesome CrossWalk is. Just off the top of my head, this is also in my annual report, which was it is online. You can find this. Big numbers, man, that you and I got to be a part of. So just here locally, we generated about 5,000 meals for local Napa people over the last ministry year. That's awesome. In Africa, we generated over 120,000 meals from your generosity. That's incredible. Because we look at our entire campus as a tool to serve the community, I'm not kidding, somewhere around 1,000 people every day flow through our campus, getting healing through recovery groups and other things that happen here. That's awesome. We help people work through divorce. We help people set boundaries. We help people, especially this year, because we're tapping in some skill sets, we're going to help you figure out some financial smarts stuff. Hope to bring back some marriage stuff and some parenting stuff this year. CrossWalk's just this great place, and I'm so proud of us, because there's no way it's me, it's us. That's the way to go. Give yourselves a little round of applause. It's very good. Yes, let's clap for ourselves and congratulate ourselves. But also, this is a place of milestones, where people come into our church for different reasons, and they find themselves moving forward in life. And there's one very cool milestone that was reached last week by the Hendrickson family. Let's see it on the next slide. This does have volume, I hope. There it is.
You're such a big boy now, Jack.
So, Jack learned to ride his bike without training wheels. Let's wave at the proud parents over there. Raise your hands so we can actually have So cool. So, Nicole sent me that video last week. I thought, oh, that's just adorable. So now you got to be part of the adorableness. We also have a new baby in the family, Emily and Abel. I don't know if you see them both. They mostly come to the 9 o'clock service. She was very pregnant most of the year. Well, anyway, they had a beautiful baby at the end of June. They can't wait to come back and see us when they've recovered from the first couple months of parenthood and can do that. So anyway, I'll be posting that soon on Facebook and stuff. So it's really fun. Before I give you the fill in the blanks, we need to correct our thinking on some stuff. And this is another area where CrossWalk helps folks in a lot of ways. You are automatically hardwired to have a particular orientation toward God. And that orientation toward God is somewhat healthy, but also somewhat destructive. And the healthy part is the awe part. When you recognize that there's something bigger than us going on in the world, and that it's ever present, it's everywhere, that's awe-inspiring. And sometimes we need to be taken to awe-inspiring places of creation to really tap into that. This is amazing, or things happen to you, things line up, things enter your life, and you're like, wow, that was such a God thing, and you're like, this is really big. That's the really good side. But the primitive side of us that goes all the way back to the caveman days is that you have a fear of God that's not necessarily healthy. The fear of God. Now there's a part of that which is good in terms of, like in the Psalms when we see fear a lot, it means a deep reverence. But then there are others of us who have a fear of God like, what did I do this week? I'm coming to church. I got to make sure I'm okay because I'm pretty sure the lightning bolts are following any day now. Fear kills your faith, even though for a moment it helps your faith. Fear kills your faith because it limits your capacity to be in an actual relationship with God. So if my relationship with my children or my wife or family or friends was based on fear, we would have a relationship. I would try to bark my orders and get them to do what I want. But it's not much of a relationship, is it? But when it's an actual relationship, where there's mutual love going on, well, that's kind of what we're looking for. And the stuff I'm going to be talking about today is stuff to do. And I need to handle the fear-based stuff because if you're not careful, we'll hear all this stuff that CrossWalk is about, what we see Jesus doing, and we'll look at it as this exhaustive list of 7 more things we got to do in our life. And it'll feel like such a burden. And that's not the point. So I just wonder, did some of you grow up in a faith tradition that really emphasized the fear thing, and you better do it or else? If you grew up in that, raise your hand. Yeah. How many of you are excited to leave that kind of way behind? Yeah, because there's a damaging side to that. I understand the respectful side of it. I get that, but I think it does more damage than it does good. So I want to paint a bit different picture for you. And this is what I want you to think about as we mow through these 7 things. First is my t-shirt. I've owned this t-shirt for several years. I only wear it on special occasions, so today's a special occasion. So it says, the road to discovery is a trail. The road to discovery is a trail. I've used this metaphor before, but especially after having done a big family road trip this year, if all you do is stay on the interstate, you're really not going to see a whole lot, are you? You got to get off the main drag and take some highways that twist and turn to get to places that you'd never see otherwise. Imagine how your life would be if the only experience you have is I-5 between Modesto and Coalinga. I know, and it's foggy, right? A lot of people, I think, go through their life and they're like, we are making good time. I can't see anything. This is really boring, but we're getting there fast. I think a lot of people live their life like that. And then they get to the end of their life and they're like, that's it. Or with their faith. They cruise along because a lot of people are doing faith a particular way and they're making good time, but you're not really seeing anything. But you and I know that, if you take a turn left, if you're going south anyway, and you follow the right signs and you go on enough twisty roads, you're going to enter into this scene of Yosemite that just blows your mind. And you're like, how did that happen? And all of a sudden you become a believer, right? Because you see that. Or if you take another turn and you're on Highway 1 and you're risking your life around some of these curves, it's like, whoa, this is amazing. The point is, the road to discovery is not an interstate. It's not a freeway, it's a trail. And the smaller the trail sometimes, the better the spots we end up seeing. I want you to think about that when you think about the things we're going to look at that Jesus did through the Gospel of John, things that we are invited to do as well. Another metaphor. Maybe this will make it better. Anybody ever been on a cruise ship? Not cruising the town, but a cruise ship? Yeah. So the way cruises work, you bring stretchy pants because you're going to gain 10 pounds as soon as you go. And McCart's just got back from a cruise. Yeah, that's right. The food's always good. It's usually great entertainment and all that. And here's the thing. Now, wherever you're taking your cruise, I've been on a couple. Been one in the Bahamas and did one a number of years ago for my parents' 50th anniversary and did the Hawaiian Islands, which is very cool. For the Hawaiian Islands, you get on the cruise ship and they take you to different ports and different islands. And you have an option. Your option is this. You can stay on the boat and you can enjoy all the free food all day long. You can see a show if you want at night, in the middle of the night, whatever. And you can stay right by the pool and chill out if you want. Or you can get off the boat and you can take what's called an excursion. Right? Now, the excursion is actually why you're taking the cruise. Because that's why you're in the middle of the. If you're not taking any excursions, just stay home and order a lot of food. You'll save money. You'll still gain a lot of weight. Right? But don't bother, because you're not going to sleep as well on a cruise ship because the rooms are tiny and it rocks and that kind of a thing. But a lot of people, and even one of the islands we'd already spent some time on, and so we decided to hang out a day, and that's okay here and there. But imagine if life and if your faith was more meant to be like a cruise. And it's going to come into ports all throughout your life. And you have an invitation. It's not going to really cost you anything except for your will to get off the boat and to go see something else. Because excursions in the real world and cruise ships, they cost money. And sometimes that keeps people from doing it. But imagine if in the world of our faith, the cruise ship pulls into different ports and says, hey, we've got a very interesting vista for you guys to see today. I think you're going to want to see this. Well, then the option's to you. Do I want to see this amazing thing or not? The tone changes. It's no longer, oh, I can't believe the captain is making me get off the ship to go see beautiful sights. It's not that way at all. Do you see what I'm saying? Now it's there's an amazing thing to go see. I have the opportunity to go see it if I want to. The whole framework changes from a have to, out of fear, to a get to, because you can. So, what I want you to do, somewhere on here, you can do it multiple times if you want, but I want you to, with a pen that should be on the table, or steel threads, CrossWalk shines brightest when we, and I want you to add a couple more words here. Right under when we, I want you to write get to. When we get to. Because you get to do this Jesus stuff. The whole light series and the salt series before that was not in any way to imply that you better do this stuff or else that's completely off point and completely counter to the kind of relationship with God that Jesus lived, modeled, taught. The point is, we experience the love of God, this greater than ourselves, this ground of being, this bigger other, and we are sensing crazy paradox through the text of Scripture, which march through some very primitive thinking, and yet the pervasive voice, the pervasive picture of God through there is a God who loves and redeems, cover to cover. That's the God that is inviting us to experience life to the full, to experience more. All of this stuff is get to. And so the first get to that we get to is right here in the center. And that one is this: we get to choose. You get to choose. And that's what we get to herald to other people. We get to choose. We choose to follow Jesus because walking in his footsteps leads to life at its fullest, leads to strong self-esteem, leads to healthier relationships, leads to greater impact, leads to global influence, and 100 other things. But make this clear. Let me make it clear that it's a choice that you get. There's nobody every day that's saying you have to do this. It's just not how it works. You get an invitation every day of your life, every moment of the day, where God is with you, God is in front of you, God is behind you, and God is saying, hey, let's do this together. And will you choose me on this? Because I think it's going to work out well. The reason this is important is there are people in our world, I'm sure you know them, you may be one of them, that you feel like you don't have a choice. That you were locked into one particular script for your life. It's how you're born, it's your skin tone, it's your economic status, it's the kind of stuff that you did that led to your life right now, or the kind of stuff that was done to you that led to your life right now, and you feel like you're locked into a particular track and you can never get off. And what I want to tell you is that's a lie. That there is always an invitation to a new, bigger, brighter story when we follow in the footsteps of Jesus. When he called his disciples, there were a few, odd ones in the ball, but for the most part, these are kind of successful folks who kind of figured some stuff out. They're fishermen, they're making a living. And yet he invited them to follow him, to choose his path. And it was better. So every day you get to choose. Say it with me. Every day we get to choose. You don't have to choose, but you get to choose. Every day. It's your choice. You don't have to keep repeating me. Some of you are trying to do that. It's impossible. So don't do that. So every day you get to do that. And I want you to think about people, not just for yourself, but some people that you know. Because CrossWalk is all about service. That's why we exist. Now, some might push back and say, I thought the biblical idea, the purpose of the church is to worship God. That's true. But the greatest act of worship is service. So when we are serving, worshiping God the best. I want you to think about somebody you know right now that needs to hear you've got a choice. You don't have to be locked in to whatever label you put on yourself, whatever your history has been does not need to dictate the future. There's another choice. Sometimes, especially if we're in depression or something, our mind literally can't think beyond one or two choices. There's always more choices. And this choice is a winner. So let's go on to the next one. The next one is the choice to stretch. We get to stretch. So everybody say, we get to stretch. Yes, we do. Some people think this sounds exhausting, but it really isn't. So we stretch our paradigms to align with Jesus' way. Our entire worldview is shaped by adopting Jesus' lens. This informs who are we? Who is God? What about our stuff, our relationship with our material stuff? Where are we and where will we be? Now here's the thing. We don't like to stretch all that much. In fact, I was just listening to a podcast yesterday that was pretty good on seasons. As a guy who just dropped his, strangely similar to my story, just dropped his son off at college. And he was talking about the mourning of that and how it is our tendency to want to hold on to particular times in history. But that's really not how life goes. Life is ever evolving, always moving forward. And sometimes, if this was a good insight, sometimes we could choose a graduation. We could choose to embrace stretching into the next new thing, the next new normal for us. But too often for us, we don't choose the graduation, which is a happy occasion, something to celebrate. Too often we opt for a funeral. And instead of being a joyous thing, it's like this terrible, grief-stricken thing. Oh my goodness, this stage is past and I feel so terrible about it. And sometimes it doesn't go well at all. Sometimes you've been in a work situation and it's been too long. And you know it and everybody knows it, but it's what you know. And so you feel like you got to stay on. And then when that finally happens, where we finally move on, it feels more like a funeral. Some of you are in relationships where, as he mentioned in his podcast, you're settling for warm body syndrome. You're just with somebody. It's not a great relationship. It's not what you want. It's not going to go where you want. But it's a warm body, and you're familiar with it. So you stay with it. And it's headed toward a funeral. Or other life stages that we go through. But the fact is that if we can understand what Jesus is trying to do and inviting us to choose, which he did in profound ways, every time he taught, he pushed the envelope. Every time. And every time he pushed the envelope, it was a good thing, even if it was hard. So for Nicodemus, it was a whole different way of thinking about how God would interact and invite people to new life. And this whole concept of born again was, introduced, and thinking about this in wild, crazy ways. A woman at a well in Samaria invited to stretch her thinking theologically. A woman who was on the outs with Judaism and her entire community. Now she sees the world very differently, saw herself differently, radically changed her self-identity. From going to an outcast to one who is a champion of good news. Crazy, crazy stuff happens when we choose to stretch with Jesus. We get to stretch, and that's a very good thing. Another awesome thing that we crosswalkers say we get to do is we get to kneel. Everybody say, we get to kneel. We get to kneel in service like Jesus did, using our gifts and strength to serve those around us. So this kind of gets to my little thing today. What are your gifts? What are your strengths? What are you passionate about? And how will you use you to serve well? Jesus, the guy was pretty awesome. I think we'd all agree. But he was not afraid of just doing menial kinds of stuff. He pulled up his sleeves now and then and just did stuff because it needed to be done. And we get to do that. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Our food pantry is awesome, and they are moving forward and going to be figuring out even better ways to be more incredible than they already are. You know, most of those people, in fact, I don't think anybody on the entire food pantry team has a degree in food pantry. Not one of them. And they all use different skills that they bring to the table to serve. They kneel in service. One of the things I know Lauren was passionate about is as people are hanging out here waiting for their number to go get their food, is Lauren just thought, you know what, we need to make this a little more hospitable. So Lauren makes coffee or Lauren makes lemonade and encourages them to just chill out and hang out and have a nice time. And that's service. Lauren's a carpenter by trade. They didn't teach him in carpenter school, how to make coffee or lemonade or be nice. He's kneeling in service that way. And I could go on and on about so many of you. My question is, do you understand that's a get-to thing? Because sometimes we think, oh, no, this is something I don't really have time for. I don't really want to do this. But don't you understand? This is a get-to thing. It's not a have-to thing. It's a get-to thing. And when you get to do all this stuff in one big package, it all starts to work. But when you start to take them away, you find that your faith isn't quite as hot as it once was. So what are you doing just to be part of the action? Great news for everybody. Immediately following service, these chairs and tables got to get put away. So you can start kneeling even today. But here's another cool thing. There are people in our community that I think are really looking for a place to kneel. They don't even know where to get started. There's a person in our church that I have just profound respect for and has served as chairman of our board of stewards, has helped our church in many ways navigating some legal stuff that we didn't know what to do. You know how he got started here at CrossWalk Church? He started by helping trim bushes. That was his first encounter of the church, and his name is Ben Newman. He showed up for a campus work day just to kneel. And now, he's a really big deal. So that's pretty cool. There are people in our community that I think are just looking for a place to help out, a place that's doing something. And when you invite other people to get to do the same thing, you never know where it's going to lead. So when you're thinking about this stuff, don't just think about you. Think about who do you know that is just, watching reruns all day and, they want to get involved in something because they can. And we have room for that. The next thing has to do with we get to grace. So everybody say, you get to grace. So the stories on this one are just profound. It's two stories back to back. That's the way the Gospel of John was organized. It's not meant to be a timeline. It's more like a theological foci, all the way through. And so there are these two amazing stories back to back in the Gospel of John. One is one that's a favorite of so many. It's the woman who was caught in adultery and was thrown right in front of Jesus. And the people who put her up to all this stuff, they were the religious leaders, and they wanted her dead. They didn't care that she was a pawn in a chess game. They asked Jesus, what should we do with her? And they wanted him to say, well, stone her or don't stone her, because they would have him trapped either way. And you know what ended up happening? Jesus let her off the hook. He graced her. And he said, this is the famous one, you who are sinless among you, cast the first stone. And everybody walked away. So it was just Jesus and the woman. He forgives her before she even asked for forgiveness, before she could even utter it. She's already forgiven, because that's the way it works. Grace is there for us. It's already fully employed. But do we know that it's there for us? And do we know that we have the authority to extend it to other people? Did you know that because you understand the lessons of Jesus, what Jesus was about, this is going to mess with you a little bit, but this is true. If somebody comes up to you and they confess a whopper of a sin, or even a little small one, like they took an extra creamer for their coffee or something, or stole an extra pen from the church or something, do you know that you have the capacity to tell them their sins are forgiven? You do. because they are. Because Jesus gave you that right to do it. You are not God, but you have the right because you understand the story. And you understand that's who God is. You understand what a gift that is to some people who are just wallowing in shame and guilt to know that they can be free? It's extraordinary. The other story in the Gospel of John is a guy who was born blind, and everybody looked at him and labeled him as either he's a terrible sinner or his parents are a terrible sinner. And Jesus goes and heals him, which communicated to everybody this guy's sins are forgiven. And he went from just being a blind guy who started to see to recognizing Jesus as first a healer and then maybe a prophet and finally the anointed one of God. Rich stuff, all dealing with grace. Have you been graced, by the way? Do you buy into this profound reality that whatever you've been up to, whatever you've been into, you have not outwitted God, you have not outsinned God, but you really are forgiven. Do you understand that? You really are. So I just want you to say it out loud so I know you know it. Say, I'm forgiven. Say, no, seriously, I'm forgiven. Right. You really are. That's the way God works. And so you have the opportunity now to not just own it and build your life on it, but as you come across people who are in a cycle where they can't get over their own stuff so much that they just keep repeating the same thing over and over again, you get to be agents of hope and change. We'll get more to that in a little bit. But the next thing you get to do is connect. So everybody say, we get to connect. And when you connect as crosswalkers, Crosswalk shines all the brighter. By the way, I have to just point out the lovely artwork here that is in your bulletins today. I know. What expert did that? Well, it was me. That's my good work that you can take home and frame if you like. I could even sign it if you want. But anyway, connect. Investing time to be fully present with God softens our hearts, opens our minds, helps us focus, reduces stress, strengthens, yields hope, gets you through. And this is something Jesus modeled. You can't live without it. You can't do faith without it. By the way, all these things I'm saying, all these are highways off the interstates. Because if you just look at everybody who's on the freeway, they're probably not doing all this stuff real well. They're just trucking through life. And they're not getting off on the exit of choosing. They're not choosing to get off. They're not choosing to stretch. They're not choosing to grace. They're not choosing to kneel. And they're not choosing to connect. In fact, Jesus even said something about this toward the end of the Sermon on the Mount, which is sort of what I've been working through. And I got stuck on Salt and Light for the summer. But anyway, he even said, the way is wide, and there are many people on the path that leads to destruction. In other words, not life, not what you want. But he said the way is narrow, and few find it, the path that leads to life. Because you find it on a trail. And sometimes what you need to do, and it's hard to do because you're so busy and everybody else is so busy talking about how busy they are, you feel like if you're not so busy, then something's wrong with you. You need something to be wrong with you. You need to get off on an exit so you can connect with God. And some of you have no idea what to do, so I'll give you something. Read one verse. Review whatever we did on Sunday. That's easy. Just review it. That's not hard. I mean, it's kind of hard to listen to me, but it's not hard just to review or read the scriptures. Or how about this? This is even easier. As long as you're breathing, you can do this. All you got to do, work up to something pretty good. Tomorrow, take 2 minutes and see if you can just close your eyes and breathe deeply and focus on your breathing. And just see what happens. And add a minute each day. See what happens in your life once you get up to 10 minutes a day of just doing that. And then, if you can, think through this profound thought. That you already know it because we've told you so many times, that the word for breath and the word for spirit are the same in the Greek and the Hebrew. Imagine if you're deep breathing, if now you're focusing on God, I just want more of you in my life. I want to breathe you in more deeply. Imagine where that might take you. All you're going to be doing is training your brain, softening your heart to connect with God. There are more ways that we can get into. You can steal the thing I did for a couple weeks in a row. The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. Just focus on that one phrase for 2 minutes straight. Just close your eyes and just keep saying over and over again, the Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. And just see what happens after a few minutes of that. It's just connecting with God. This is tapping into the heart of God. The next thing that we move into it's kind of a big word, to incarnate. Incarnate simply means to be the presence of God, to be the actual living presence of God. Jesus, we look at this in profound ways, that's what Christ and Messiah means, is the anointed one, that God incarnated in Jesus in very profound ways. And so we incarnate the presence of God when we come alongside those mostly closest to us. In other words, the incarnation thing mostly is going to happen to people very, very close to you, not the total strangers most of the time. These are people who are close to you that may be hurting, they may be rejoicing, maybe they're struggling with something, maybe they're thriving, or maybe they're dying. But you get the opportunity to be the presence of God with them through this. Jesus did this in two very different kinds of stories. First with Peter, who claimed to have utmost allegiance to Jesus, said, I'm going to die for you if that's what it takes. And Jesus, well, Pete, that's great, but actually you're going to deny me 3 times before the night's over. Jesus was with him even though. Judas was around the table for that Last Supper. And Jesus was with him too, even though he was already planning a way to get him killed. After Lazarus was raised from the dead, Mary, Lazarus' sister, was around that table. It was a time of sheer joy. Jesus was with her too. This is the incarnate presence of God being with people in the highest and the lows. Just being present to God and present to others in the biggest chunks of life. That's what we get to do. So say, we get to incarnate. Because you do. And the final one that we're talking about today is we get to resurrect. So everybody say, we get to resurrect. You get to be used to help people in the midst of death to experience life and rebirth. You get to be used to free people from their guilt and shame, their despair, their fear, their self-loathing, their capsized life, or even their very small life, not in a judgmental way, but the Jesus way is a good way. It's good news. It's always been good news. It'll continue to be good news. And it's good news to everybody. So when we talk about good news, when we talk about following the footsteps of Jesus, that's a very, very good news kind of thing. In fact, if it comes off as bad news, I think we're probably doing it wrong. Because it's going to be a freeing, good news, happy thing. It may cause changes in our life, but they're toward good ends. And so, there's a difference here between a couple of different words. There's a difference between the word resurrection and resuscitation. Do you know what resuscitation is? That's call 911, the EMT comes, they get the paddles out, they blow in your mouth a little bit, and boom, you're resuscitated. And you're back to life. So if it's me, I'm back, I'm the same Pete, just got burn marks on my chest and tastes like I kissed a gorilla or something like that. Anyway, that's resuscitated. I'm back to living. Resurrection's different. If you read any of the Gospels, all of them, when they talk about the resurrection of Jesus, nobody recognized him. In John's Gospel, he meets him up. He says, hey, I'm going to meet you up at the lake. Go fishing without me, I'll catch you up there. And so the guys are fishing, I don't have any luck. And they hear some yahoo from the beach say, hey, did you catch anything? And they're like, no. And they're all like, half of them are professional fishermen, so they're not happy about that. Then the yahoo says, why don't you try it one more time? And so they throw in the notes, and now they get this huge haul of fish. And they put the dots together, and they realize the yahoo on the beach was Jesus. And so Peter, swims ahead of the guys. The rest of the guys row in. And Jesus already, his caught fish, has it cooked, ready for breakfast. And they're all eating together. And then the Gospel of John says something very interesting. It says, people were pretty sure it was Jesus, but nobody dared ask him. Would that be in there? Every gospel, when Jesus shows up, there are people who don't recognize him. That's because resurrection is transformative. It's not resuscitation. It's transformational. And I want to tell you from my own experience, I am a different Pete because I have experienced resurrection multiple times in my life. Multiple times. And I know some of your stories. And you are a different you because you have experienced the transformative power of resurrection. This is new life coming in, giving an old body, an old way of thinking, new life, but you become different when that happens. When the guy who was born blind was touched by Jesus, new man. And it wasn't just because of his vision. His whole life vision changed. That's resurrection. Do you understand how cool this is to be a part of this? When you sow into somebody's life, when you're kneeling with them in service, when you're stretching alongside them, when you're just incarnating God with them, when you're gracing them, all these things work together toward God's great end of redemption and resurrection. This is the transformation, the redemption of all things, and you get to be a part of it. So, if you think the world is going to hell in a handbasket, which every political season we're assured that's happening, and, and the candidate that wants you there will assure you that they're going to change it. Guess what? If you really believe the world is going to hell in a handbasket, I have great news for you. You have all the gifts you need to be a part of a solution, because you are called to help resurrect it. You are called to help redeem it, and you get to see it one person at a time. You may not see it all at once. Sometimes you do. Most of the times you don't. You may just be one piece of the cog. So when Carrie is doing her warm, fuzzy thing with a person through the food pantry or whatever, turns out that person may be a Jaja whose life is transformed. And Jaja and Dolph, before he passed away, were regular attenders here, and they love this church. You know what Jaja calls the people who work in our food pantry? You know who Jaja is, right? So a lot of you know who Jaja is. She works on a lot of Sundays now. She's usually dancing somewhere. That's Jaja. You know what she calls our food pantry people? Calls them the pantry angels. Dolph and Jaja's lives were resurrected. Resurrected. Transformed by the power of God. And you food pantry people, because you were kneeling, you got to see it. Isn't that incredible? You got to be a part of this. No one was forcing you. I mean, Darlene, she's pretty tough. You know, nobody wants to cross Darlene. We know that. But the reality is, even for Darlene, it's a get-to thing. You got to do that. You get to do this. You get to be the ones to see the world redeemed. You have a part to play. My question is, will you play that part? Do you hear the invitation coming your way? You can make a difference. It's time to make a difference. So I want to know, what's your skill set? Are you a dream teamer? Are you a get-her-doner? Or whatever I called it? You a warm, fuzzy teen person? You know, all those things. Seriously, what are you going to do? Because what I want you to do is, like literally right now, I want you to tear that thing off your bulletin. I want you to make a decision. If you're willing to accept the invitation to be a part of this thing, and all of its complexity. You can go on to the last screen in case people didn't fill in all the blanks. You get to be a part of this. This is who CrossWalk is. This is what we have said. This is our belief statement right here. Even with the ugly pictures. This is who we are. And when we get this going on, we shine brightest. So I want you to fill that thing out and put it in the envelope that's there. And we'll pray for it together, and I want you to be praying about it from now until 2 weeks from now. About how God might get to use you. Because you heard the call. You heard the invitation. And you've chosen to say yes in whatever way that means for you. Now, the reason why my mind is blown about what I think CrossWalk can be is I think we have done an extraordinary amount, mostly with our own resources. Because most of the money that comes in for Africa and for Napa and all that is coming from us. And there's no hierarchy that's sending us a check every week. It's us. So your giving really doesn't matter. I mean, your giving really makes this thing happen, and we've done amazing things with it. But here's what I know. I know that we are poised as a church to reach a segment of our community that is dying to find a place like CrossWalk, that wants to get their hands dirty, that wants to be a part of something that's meaningful and impactful, but they just don't know that we exist. You know, when I talk to newer people to CrossWalk, and I say, how in the world did you find us? Well, we popped around and we finally found you. We just knew you were it. You were it. And I'm like, we got to speed that process up. And so here's what I'm optimistic about. I think if you are putting down your passion and you are being used by God in all of these ways, I just cannot imagine how many lives might just get impacted. And even people who want nothing to do with faith, want nothing to do with God, who think the whole thing's a bunch of baloney, but they care about feeding people in Napa. and they might care about feeding people in an orphanage, I bet they just might come to a very cool event, like another Journey concert or whatever you can cook up. I think they would, and I think they'd get on board with it. What if we could double the kinds of things we could serve locally and globally? How amazing would that be? And knowing that we brought in people who never knew that they could make a difference in the world, and now we have. What could God do through you, CrossWalk? What's possible? That's my question. How bright will CrossWalk shine? Because you've heard the invitation to be shining. Let's pray together. So God, the kind of stuff that we see in the Gospel of John, the things that we've been scribbling around here, these are not freeway activities. These are get off the freeway activities. These are follow the trail activities. And there are going to be times when we recognize that there are people around us that are not on the journey with us, and we'll wonder, well, then are we doing the right thing? But help us remember that the path is narrow, and there are a few people on it who really get it, who really understand where it's happening. And we want to be those people. We want a life filled with meaning. We want a life filled with you. We want a life that stretches. We want opportunities to serve other people. We can't wait to grace other people. We can't wait to connect with you more deeply. And we are very excited about being a part of the redemption of all things. Getting to see resurrection happens in our own life, even as we're extending it to others. So God, help us. And what we've scribbled on our little clue-in sheets and they're stuffing in the envelopes, I just pray over those. That as we drop those into the plates, that we will be earnest about it, and we'll be like, yeah, God, I want to get in the game. I want to be a part of this thing. And I pray that you will be messing with all of us by your Spirit to help us wonder how CrossWalk can shine even more for your sake, that more people can be served, which is our greatest act of worship. May we be fully yours. May you be fully infused in CrossWalk. May we let you do your thing. In Jesus' name. Amen.